Right now, as you listen to this, your physical form is silently repairing itself. A tiny abrasion you never noticed, a rogue cellular shift instantly neutralized by your immune network before it could take root. You didn't orchestrate any of this on purpose. You didn't consciously dispatch your white blood cells to the front lines or dictate your internal chemistry. Something far deeper handles these tasks. An inner operating system beneath your active thoughts. A tireless intelligence that has sustained your vitality since your inception. Joseph Murphy dedicated decades to investigating this exact phenomenon, defining it as the subconscious mind. His core proposition was radical enough to completely reframe how you view your physical well-being. Your inner mind doesn't just assist in recovery. It is the sole driver of it. Every therapeutic intervention or clinical procedure only succeeds when it aligns with this foundational intelligence. Consider what happens when you experience a minor cut. No external ointment actually fuses the tissue together. An internal capability does. And if that innate intelligence can mend your physical structure without your explicit direction, it raises an important question about what else it can achieve once you learn how to direct it properly. Born in Ireland in 1898, within a traditional religious framework, Murphy initially trained for the ministry before a personal pivot redirected his path toward the United States. There, he pursued chemistry, law, theology, and psychology, ultimately earning a doctorate and leading a large congregation in Los Angeles. Yet, his ambition extended far beyond offering comfort through standard dogma. He sought the mechanics behind human transformation. By examining global belief systems, historical philosophies, and early psychological frameworks side by side, he uncovered a single unifying thread. Whether looking at a traditional spiritual healer, a mystic, or an individual under hypnosis, recovery always operated through the same channel. Not the analytical, reasoning mind, but a deeper stratum that accepts direction without friction, doubt, or hesitation. His landmark 1963 publication, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, emerged as a cornerstone in personal development history. The section readers resonated with most, the one that shifted perspectives on health and recovery, focused entirely on physical restoration. This wasn't about wishful thinking, but rather a structured, repeatable mechanic rooted in how human cognition is constructed. To grasp this, visualize your awareness operating through two distinct layers, comparable to dual operators managing a switchboard. Your active, conscious mind represents the part experiencing this presentation right now. It evaluates, debates, questions, and applies logic. It is the part that chose to engage with this material. Yet, relative to the whole, it handles a very small fraction of information processing per second. Residing beneath that surface layer is the subconscious. It does not debate, analyze, or distinguish between actual events and vividly constructed mental imagery. It simply absorbs whatever impression is delivered with strong emotional resonance and repetition, executing that instruction with absolute fidelity. This dynamic is precisely what governs your physical vessel. Every heartbeat, every resting breath, every hormonal shift, and every instance of cellular division follows its lead. You have never had to consciously command a bruise to fade, yet it happens reliably on schedule. Murphy's core premise is straightforward yet profound. If your inner mind is already managing an advanced restorative network on autopilot, learning to communicate with it intentionally isn't forcing an unnatural task. It is simply pointing an existing mechanism toward a deliberate target. Think of it like an industrial facility operating continuously within you, running long before you learn to speak. It functions independently, but it responds directly to blueprints. The challenge is that most individuals never realize they hold the authority to update those instructions, leaving the facility to run on outdated plans, often shaped by anxiety, stress, and past emotional friction. Before diving into philosophy, Murphy grounded his observations in clinical realities, pointing to phenomena like the placebo effect that conventional science continually documents. In historical trials, participants administered inert sugar substitutes frequently experienced measurable physiological shifts simply because they anticipated authentic treatment. This wasn't merely a psychological uplift. Tests recorded decreased inflammation, stabilized blood pressure, and, in specific instances, significant physical improvements. No active chemical agent was introduced, meaning the sole variable was expectation. Expectation is not a product of active logical reasoning. You cannot rationally trick yourself into believing a placebo is medicine while knowing its true composition. The conviction must settle past critical analysis into the subconscious before the body reacts accordingly. Murphy's insight was clear. If an accidental or misplaced assumption can alter physical markers when embraced deeply enough, intentional, well-structured beliefs open up entirely new possibilities. He documented instances such as an individual facing a stubborn physical condition who was casually told by a specialist that recoveries do occur, even if the exact triggers remain unclear. The individual anchored onto that single phrase, reviewing it mentally each evening before resting. They chose the stance that their system already knew how to restore balance, repeating it until the inner mind accepted it as reality rather than mere wishful thinking. Over time, physical markers shifted entirely. Clinical observations often label such events spontaneous remissions, a term used when the physical form resolves challenges outside standard medical explanation, while the underlying mechanic is simply an updated instruction set taking root. Consider a quick mental exercise. Vividly picture biting into a tart, fresh lemon. Imagine the bright yellow texture, the sharp aroma, your teeth breaking through the rind, and the citrus juice releasing onto your tongue. Your mouth naturally produces saliva in response to that mental simulation. Your physical form cannot distinguish between an intensely imagined scenario and an immediate reality, reacting bodily to a mental construct. This illustrates the exact process Murphy outlined on a larger scale. When you dwell on illness or decline with intense fear and continuous repetition, your physical self begins mirroring those stress states. Conversely, focusing on vitality and balance with steady composure encourages the system to lean toward restoration. This explains why Murphy emphasized the moments immediately preceding sleep. As you drift off, your critical, skeptical gatekeeper, the active filter that normally rejects concepts your logic doubts, gradually relaxes. This creates an ideal window where the subconscious is fully receptive and open to new direction without argument. This insight forms the basis of what he termed the rest technique. Instead of using those final moments to replay daily frustrations, you deliberately visualize an optimized, resilient version of yourself, moving smoothly and breathing naturally. You maintain that imagery softly, without strain, until sleep takes over. Not because magical thinking forces an outcome, but because that specific timing aligns with your mind's most receptive state. Another prominent case study from his work involved an individual experiencing partial functional loss in a hand following an emotional shock, completely detached from any structural damage. Medical diagnostics showed healthy nerves and zero physical trauma, yet the hand remained unresponsive. Murphy approached this not by trying to logically argue with her active mind, knowing that debating logic rarely shifts deep-seated assumptions, but by guiding her into a deeply relaxed, receptive state. She was encouraged to use gentle, sensory-based framing. My hand is softening now. Restoration is unfolding. And my fingers move smoothly and naturally, without force or strain. Repeated calmly like a quiet rhythm day after day, particularly prior to rest, physical responsiveness gradually returned. From Murphy's perspective, the initial limitation was never a structural failure. It was an internal command installed by shock, telling the hand to restrict movement. Because the subconscious treats commands driven by fear the same way it treats those shaped by calm repetition, the instruction was successfully overwritten through consistent, peaceful suggestion. This dynamic underpins every transformation narrative in his writings. The physical form is rarely a broken entity demanding outside intervention. Rather, it often follows outdated or fearful instructions that simply require a translation into a language it readily accepts. Repetition, emotional clarity, and conviction rather than sheer force. Recognizing this shifts your perspective significantly. If your inner mind processes instructions, whether you issue them intentionally or not, it has likely been absorbing guidance from you for years. Every time you repeated phrases like, "I always catch infections during this season," or "this chronic discomfort never leaves," or quietly accepted the identity of someone whose health is unreliable, you were essentially programming your system. The subconscious, acting with absolute obedience, took those inputs and worked to manifest them.
This represents the demanding side of Murphy's framework. It removes the comfort of viewing oneself as a passive victim of a malfunctioning biology and replaces it with personal stewardship. You have authored internal instructions your entire life, many by accident, absorbed from casual remarks, societal expectations, or diagnoses accepted as identity rather than temporary data. When multiplied across populations, treating long-term fatigue or decline as an unchangeable fate creates a culture where well-being feels out of reach. Murphy's perspective suggests that a vast amount of physical strain stems simply from the mind never being guided toward better instructions.
Belief detached from a clear process remains mere hope. Murphy outlined a distinct, structured approach. Physical stillness. The subconscious does not absorb guidance effectively when your system is rigid, anxious, or forcing an outcome. Straining belongs to the active, conscious layer and signals internal doubt rather than certainty, making physical relaxation the essential first step. Sensory imagery. Vague desires, like wanting to feel better, register weakly, whereas precise sensory visualization, such as picturing yourself moving with ease or experiencing physical balance, mimics the lemon exercise, engaging the subconscious through vivid detail. Present tense framing. Avoid future-oriented phrasing like "I will recover," which keeps improvement perpetually out of reach because the subconscious processes instructions literally. Instead, frame statements in the present, treating them as current reality. Anxiety-free repetition. Eliminate obsessive checking or tense repetition driven by panic, opting instead for calm, steady reinforcement during the drowsy window before rest. Preemptive gratitude. Cultivate appreciation as if the objective is already met. Gratitude signals acceptance to the subconscious, helping to solidify the reality of the desired state. Consider his documentation of a professional dealing with persistent stomach discomfort exacerbated by high workplace stress. While standard options managed symptoms, flare-ups consistently mirrored his anxiety levels. Removing workplace pressure entirely wasn't feasible, so the adjustment focused on shifting his internal monologue. During high-stress moments, his internal dialogue had long defaulted to assuming the pressure would damage him, and his system complied. The reframed approach involved picturing his physical core calm, balanced, and resilient, while quietly affirming steady restoration throughout the day and prior to rest. This wasn't about fighting the external environment, but about refusing to let stress carry destructive commands to the body. Over time, measurable improvements followed, alongside conventional care, which Murphy consistently supported rather than dismissed. Whether you view these dynamics through spiritual terminology or modern scientific frameworks like psychoneuroimmunology, the operating principle yields consistent results. Sustained stress suppresses immune response, while chronic anxiety delays recovery. What your mind rehearses consistently, your physical self responds to as direction. Ultimately, you are not at war with your physical form. You are not trying to force a hostile machine into compliance. You are updating instructions within a deeply loyal system that has faithfully executed whatever it was given, including signals you never meant to send. Letting go of friction and embracing clear, calm, repeated guidance allows you to cooperate with the same intelligence that has sustained your vitality silently since your earliest days.